All right, this is wild. Out of Louisville, Kentucky, the Masters champion, Scottie Scheffler, was roughed up and arrested, handcuffs thrown on him, and hauled off to jail this morning on his way to the PGA Championship there. Now, follow this. I'm going to see if we can get Joey Hudson, who's the resident golfing expert and our correspondent at large here on the Mike Gallagher Show, to pop on because he made me aware of this story. And if you're in Louisville, I got to believe everybody in Louisville's talking about this. According to news reports, this is from Fox Carolina, a pedestrian was struck by a bus while crossing the road early this morning. So traffic was backed up in both directions on the only road that leads to the Valhalla Golf Club, which is where the PGA Championship is being held. There were dozens of police vehicles flashing red and blue lights near the entrance. Scheffler, who's the number one golfer in the world, he was to start his second round today at 8:48 a.m. He drove past a police officer in his SUV with markings on the door indicating it was a PGA Championship vehicle. He's trying to get to the golf course. The officer screamed at him to stop, then grabbed onto the car until Scheffler stopped about 10 yards later. You have to understand, media people, reporters are following all this because they're covering this big PGA event in Louisville. Well, Scheffler was arrested, handcuffed. He walked over to the police car, placed in the back, very stunned about what was happening. According to Jeff Darlington of ESPN, he witnessed the whole thing unfold. Darlington said police pulled Scheffler out of the car, pushed him up against the car, placed him in handcuffs. As he was being led to the police car in handcuffs, he said, "Please help me," to the reporter. He very clearly did not know what was happening in the situation. It moved very quickly, very rapidly, very aggressively. Now, the pedestrian was apparently crossing Shelbyville Road at about 5 a.m. The bus didn't see him. Mitchell said the man was pronounced dead on the scene. They're going to delay the PGA Championship. Well, yeah, because their number one player is in the Hooskow. Wow. What a surreal start. And this Scottie Scheffler has quite a story. He's coming off 4 victories in his last 5 tournaments, including his second Masters. For the last 3 weeks, he's been home in Dallas waiting on the birth of his first child, a boy who was born May 8th. So at one point, reporters went up to Scheffler, or to the police officers and said, "Do you know who that is?" And the police did not seem to be sure who he was. He's been charged with a felony, and his mugshot has already been released. This all happened here in the last couple of hours. And now he's facing pretty stunning charges. Felony charges for not following, and listen to this, he's been charged with second-degree assault of a police officer. Now, you had an ESPN reporter watching the whole thing unfold. Ain't nobody thinks he assaulted a police officer, apparently. But that's what they're charging him with. Third-degree criminal mischief, reckless driving, and disregarding traffic signals from an officer directing traffic. So the number one golfer in the world is now facing felony charges for trying to get to the golf course while the police were investigating a fatality that had happened hours earlier. Now, my reaction to this, and I want to get yours, especially if you're in Louisville and you can give us any insight what the local reporters are saying about that, the local coverage, because this is a real ugly story. But you know what I am pro-law enforcement. My passion is Gallagher's Heroes, the Fallen Officer Fund. The Mike Gallagher Show Charitable Foundation publishes first responders Bibles for cops, for firefighters, for paramedics, for first responders all over the world. We assist the families of police officers who've been killed in the line of duty. In fact, this is a big week. This is a salute to law enforcement week in America. I have defended police for as long as I could speak. To me, police officers are heroes. Police officers are noble. So you know how I feel about cops. But when you're on the wrong side of the law, when you cross authority, when you have the weight of the government or prosecutors or men and women with badges and they decide to come after you, what an unbelievably helpless feeling that must be. Look at what Trump is experiencing. Sorry to bring things back to the political arena, but it's true. Look what he's going through right now. I have had people, listen, I've gotten friends to become friends with a pilot here in Tampa Bay who wrote a book about being falsely accused of a crime, wound up in prison. He went to jail due to a corrupt, despicable judge, and she was as corrupt as the day is long, a woman who falsely accused him of doing something that he didn't do and wound up paying for it with almost with his life. You got to hear about Will Smith's story. And I'm going to get Will Smith, Captain Will Smith, on this show to talk about his book because it's incredible what this man went through. It's extraordinary what he experienced. So what that must feel like to be Scottie Scheffler. Now listen, maybe he hit the cop or did something. As far as all the media reports coming out of Louisville right now are suggesting, he was trying to get to the golf course, and the cop didn't want him to drive down the only road that leads to the Valhalla Country Club, the Valhalla Golf Club, and he winds up getting handcuffs slapped on him, thrown in the back of a police car, and now is facing felony charges. Now, he apparently has already been released, but what a story this is, huh? You'll be hearing about it a lot. Breaking news, what to make of it all. Do you know what I mean here about this idea that if you get on the wrong side of the law, if the government comes after you, look at the January 6th people. There are grannies. I've seen interviews with Seb Gorka interviewed a woman who's a deeply devout Christian woman of faith, facing years in prison for being at the Capitol on January 6th. What a helpless, hopeless feeling it must be to go up against the government, to go up against the law enforcement. Again, as a defender of law enforcement, and I am, we know that abuse can happen and mistakes can be made. 800-655-MIKE. Jay's in Pittsburgh. This feels like Pittsburgh Day today here on the Mike Gallagher Show. How you doing, Jay?
Good, Mike. Hey, so to play devil's advocate with the golfer, I mean, I understand they're being a little extreme with what went on, but on the other side, you know, a lot of times the celebrities feel like they're above the law. If the cops have the road blocked for a reason, such as they're investigating, you know, this accident, and the golfer says, well, I'm going to go through there anyways. I mean, that's kind of, you know,
totally.
I'm not saying he's getting what he deserves.
No,
but
totally. I mean, listen, this guy could be, maybe Scottie Scheffler is dead in the wrong here, but a felony charge because you're trying to go play golf and you're the number one golfer in the world. I'm not trying to excuse his actions because he's such a celebrated golfer, but my gosh, this is not some, you know.
Well, I understand, and I agree with you. It's you know, it's kind of severe, but on the other side, if he would have just done what the officer said and waited, he would have avoided it all.
Perhaps.
The golf tour could have waited.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. You hear these celebrities all the time doing what they want to do, feeling it they're above the law.
Thinking they can get away with anything. You could be right. I don't know the answer to this. I don't know. But again, I'm reading a pretty detailed report, and we'll get more reporting on this. But the report suggests that he didn't follow police orders because he was trying to drive to the golf course, and the cop screamed at him to stop, then grabbed onto the car. Scheffler finally stopped. He was yanked out of the car, handcuffs slapped on him. See, here's the thing about police officers, and I want to hear from police too. This is to me the big challenge about being a law enforcement officer. How you don't let your emotion overcome your professionalism. Because I've seen it. I've watched police. I mean, they're human. and you're either running from them or not obeying an order or whatever, and they get mad. And when they get mad, they got the gun and the badge. They got all the authority. They got all the power. And sometimes they take it out on a citizen in a disproportionate way. So something here is really, this is going to be a huge, huge story. And let me get your reaction to all of it. And again, I'm not trying to be down on police. I'm not. I'm a guy who supports law enforcement, but I'm also not blind to the reality that sometimes police can go overboard. We've got Jimmy on hold, who's a retired police officer, wants to give us his perspective. I hope you join us as well. If you're just joining us, Scottie Scheffler, the #1 golfer in the world, arrested and booked in jail for not following orders after a traffic fatality in Louisville, Kentucky this morning. 800, and he's been released, but now facing apparently at least one felony charge for driving where he shouldn't have driven. Wow. 800-655-MIKE, 800-655-6453. Join us. Speaking of Tampa Bay, here's Jimmy in Tampa Bay. You're retired law enforcement, Jimmy?
Yes, Mike. Good morning.
Hi, how are you? Welcome to the show. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts on all of this.
So a couple of points were made, and I guess you were guilty of it yourself, because a lot of times you hear, oh, they killed him because he was selling cigarettes. No, he got killed because he resisted arrest.
That's right.
He didn't get charged with attempting to play golf.
That's right. That's right.
So he disregarded. He maybe did a stupid thing, maybe it was ego, but either way, he disregarded. And the assault might have come from the cop being attached to that vehicle.
Dragged by the car.
If you ever been in that situation, that's where I imagine the assault charges come
I wonder how many officers have lost their lives being dragged by somebody who's trying to get away from them, and the officers.
Oh, it happens, and it's dangerous, and you're vulnerable when you're on foot. The only way you stop in a car is by commanding it to stop.
Yep.
And if it doesn't, you're already heightened. You're in a dangerous situation.
Yeah.
And
all right.
I just wanted to share that.
Good perspective. Thank you, and thank you for your service to the community, Jimmy. Appreciate it. Jerry in Southfield, Michigan. Hey, Jerry, what do you think?
Hey, Mike.
Hi.
This is a perfect example of what do you do when the police tell you to do something?
You do what they tell you to do.
The police don't know that you're the #1 golfer in the world.
That's right.
You're supposed to obey the police.
That's right. That's right. No,
that's all I'm saying.
I got you. All right, let's see what others say. 800-655-MIKE. Tim in St. Augustine, Florida. How you doing, Tim?
Hey, how are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you. I was just going to say, I think that if I drug a cop 30 feet when he asked me to comply with what he was doing, I would probably be getting a rain this morning also.
Yeah, it wouldn't just, it's not limited to the world's best golfer, is it? Man, oh man, oh man, what a story. And a lot of people say that it seems like, and Scottie Scheffler has finally broken his silence. He was arrested and charged. He was, he went to jail. He was released. He went back to the golf course around 9:12 a.m. He is expected to make his tee time. All good, he told a reporter as he made his way to the driving range. So that was the big headline. All good. It ain't all good for him, but I'm sure he's got, the best lawyers that money can buy. He's a wealthy guy. Joey Hudson, who's my good friend, our correspondent at large, talks a lot about the golfing industry. And Joey's a golfer. These guys make tons of money. Man, you don't even really appreciate how much money these folks make. Now, this isn't really a golf story, but I wanted to turn to somebody who knows golf a lot better than I do, our correspondent at large, frequent guest host, especially when I am down for the count and out of it and under the weather, the one and only Joey Hudson, pride and joy of the upstate of South Carolina, who joins us now from the South Carolina studios of News Talk 98.9 WORD, our old home and our new home in the Carolinas. All right, Joey, what a mess. So Scottie Scheffler was trying to get to the golf course. There was a scene of a fatality, apparently, at like 5 in the morning, where a poor soul was hit and killed by a bus. The police were investigating. It seems like Scottie Scheffler was trying to get to the golf course, and according to reports, dragged a cop for a number of yards who was trying to get him to stop his vehicle. Tell us what you know so far about this unfolding story out of Louisville.
Well, it looks like, Mike, as you said, there was a fatality. A bus had hit a pedestrian early this morning. Of course, this is the PGA Championship. This is one of the major championships in golf. Scottie Scheffler, the Masters champion, was trying to get to the course. He had a fairly early tee time this morning, and traffic had been backed up, as reports are. And I'm assuming he probably thought, well, I'm in a PGA official car. The car was marked, and he's trying to drive around the traffic to get to the golf course, and a police officer motioned for him to stop. Evidently, he kept moving, and the police officer grabbed to the car, and for about 10 yards, he literally pulled the police officer with him. Again, some of the reports, and the ESPN reporter who was on the scene, Jeff Darlington, describes the incident. He says he doesn't think Scottie Scheffler knew what was happening. He was simply trying to pull around the traffic to get to the golf course, not realizing the seriousness of the accident there. And they cuffed him, put him in the back of the squad car.
And charged him with at least one felony. Now, he was quickly released. He's going to make his tee time because Lord knows you don't want to miss your tee time when
no.
Can't miss your tee time, Joey. I mean, I have to just call BS on the claim that he didn't know what was going on. You got red lights everywhere. You got obviously a major police investigation. He's in a PGA marked vehicle, but who cares? If a police officer tells you you can't go this way, you got to stop. You got to stop. I don't care who you are.
Well, typically yes, but let's think about some of the events that you and I have been a part of before. Let's pretend that we are headed to the RNC this summer, and you got to be on the air in an hour, and we're an official Salem News Channel vehicle trying to get over to the venue, and traffic's backed up. So we decide, okay, we're going to pull around and try to take a shortcut to get to our venue because we have to be on the air in an hour. And a police officer kind of waves at you. Well, I think we would stop, but Scottie Scheffler is probably thinking, well, I'm just going to pull around, get ahead of the traffic, and get to the club. I don't know that he really did know what was going on.
Well, I'm going to stop. You're going to stop. I mean, we talk about this all the time when people are killed in a police confrontation, often when they're fighting back, when they're resisting arrest. I mean, remember from Eric Garner on, Eric Garner was killed because he was selling, loose cigarettes. No, he fought back and was resisting and pushing and shoving, and young men that often run from cops and wind up in a physical confrontation. This to me sounds like a do you know who I am category, and I don't care if you're the number one golfer in the world or if you're an ordinary schlub who just works hard for you do what the police tell you to do. You do. If a police officer says you can't go that way, you got to do what they tell you to do. Joey, this is I mean, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of sympathy for Scottie Scheffler. Now, to your point, news reports are now saying that Scheffler has already said to reporters this is a giant misunderstanding. So clearly his defense is going to be, like you put it, he didn't really know what was going on.
Yeah. Well, and the reports are that the traffic was backed up, had been for quite some time. Evidently some bad weather in the area too, raining and all. And again, all he's thinking about is, I've got to get to the club because my tee time is, I think it was like at 8:48 at the time, and he couldn't miss his tee time or he would be disqualified.
No. Heaven forbid. I mean, he don't want to miss his tee time. My gosh, you got the police hanging onto the car for dear life, and he's driving 10 feet down the road saying, I can't miss my tee time. I mean, Joey, this is the wildest thing because, again, it doesn't matter if it's a young black man in the inner city or a white multi-millionaire golfer. You got to do what the police tell you to do, and if you do what the police tell you to do, bad things aren't going to happen to you.
Yeah, it's never going to turn out good for you if you ignore
right.
The commands and what the police ask you to do. If they ask you to get out of your car, you get out of your car. If they ask you to stop your car, you stop your car. Obviously, Scottie Scheffler did not do that this morning. But again, and obviously I don't know Scottie Scheffler personally, but just the things that I've read about him, he's a good guy. He doesn't appear to be some of these guys can be very arrogant. I mean, they're multimillionaires, known all around the world. He doesn't appear to be that type of guy. I'm sure that he regrets that he did not stop for the police officer, but it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, the police didn't know who he was either. This Jeff Darlington from ESPN said that Scheffler, as he's cuffed and being put into the squad car, is saying, "Please help me." Darlington went over to the police officers to try to explain who Scottie Scheffler was. They didn't have a clue as to who he was.
Right. Well, and at that point, they didn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at that point, they didn't care. They got him in the handcuffs. He's in the back of the car. Again, he could be Santa Claus. They're going to take him to jail. Joey, final question, the minute or so we have left. You mentioned how wealthy these golfers are. You educated me a few years ago about the extraordinary sums of money these professional golfers make. You clearly made a bad career path. Instead of being a broadcaster, you should have tried to make it on the PGA Tour. These guys how much do they make?
Oh, any given a tournament, 3, 4, 5 million or more per tournament. Look, I could do well on the PGA Tour. I could come in 50th or 60th and still make $100 grand, $200 grand for finishing 50 or 60 in a tournament.
Wow.
And
that's how much they make?
Oh gosh, yes. If you make the cut going into the weekend, you're guaranteed $50,000 to $100,000 or more, depending on the tournament.
So one thing's for sure, he'll have the best attorneys you can afford. There won't be any shortage of legal representation for Scottie Scheffler. I guarantee you a bunch of these charges will be downgraded pretty quickly, don't you think?
Probably so, but there again, the police, they have to be careful here because you can't give people preferential treatment, and if he did it, he did it. So I don't see him doing jail time. I suspect there'll be some heavy fines involved.
All right, Joey Hudson, thanks for checking in from the upstate of South Carolina on News Talk 98.9 WORD, the voice of the Carolinas. Let's get your voice next. Again, here's what's fascinating to me. He's charged with dragging a police officer with his vehicle, disobeying orders, and still made his tee time. Somebody texted me and said he birdied the first hole. So he didn't let this little disruption get in his way. There's pictures of him being hauled off to the Hooskow in handcuffs. To me, it's kind of simple. And people are getting mad. Golfers are mad at my position. Listen, whether I'm a golfer or not is besides the point. You do what a police officer tells you to do. End of sentence. And I don't care if you're a rich golfer or a poor kid in the projects. You do what the police officer tells you to do. And if a police officer tells you to stop the car, you better stop the car. If a police officer tells you to get out of the car, you better get out of the car. If a police officer tells you to put your hands where you can see them, you better put your hands where you can see them. This is not rocket science. You know, the left won't know whose side to take on this one because they hate cops and they sure hate rich white guys. So they won't know what to do. Leftists are going to be in a total frenzy over this. They're going to be in a complete quandary. Mike's in Naples, Florida, 18 before the hour. Mike, how you doing?
Hey, Mike.
Hey.
Hey, you said the cop was dragged 10 yards. That's like 30 feet, which is like 1.5 car lengths. I mean, even if the guy jammed on the brakes and locked them up, the car would have gone 20 or 30 feet before it stopped. Besides, I don't think the cop should have been playing Superman thinking he could just grab the car and stop it. I used to watch that on Superman when I was a kid.
Okay. So there's one for Scottie Scheffler, I guess. The cop shouldn't have tried to stop the guy. Well, again, this happens a lot. I've seen all kinds of video where police are reaching in, trying to get the person to turn off the car, trying to get them, try to subdue them. They drag off, they speed off, and many times the police officer is killed in the line of duty. And I don't really normally hear people blame the police officer when that happens. 800-655-MIKE, 800-655-6453. Here's David in Louisville, where this whole incident took place. Hey, David, how are you?
I'm good. Hello, Mike.
Hi.
Hey, I wasn't there when this pedestrian was sadly killed.
Right.
But I commute right past the entrance of Valhalla on a daily basis.
And let's and I want to make sure, and let's clarify, that's the only road in and out of Valhalla, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
It's called Shelbyville Road, depending on where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in Frankfurt at the Capitol, it's called Louisville Road because it goes that way. So it's a major commuter highway. There's a large upscale subdivision on one side. Literally across the road from the Valhalla Golf Course is a big city. It's one of the premier city parks in Louisville. And so this is a 4-lane highway with a basically at grade median, and all of the commuter traffic is through that back and forth.
Wow.
And the police are in charge of that. And I went through there 2 nights knowing that I was getting into it, and the police presence there is off the charts and the number of vehicles out there. So if they don't have control of it and they're in charge of what's going on and somebody's getting hit or somebody's getting arrested because they supposedly did the wrong thing, honestly, I wasn't there, so I can't say what happened. I've heard eyewitnesses' accounts that said that this golfer did nothing wrong and that he was directed by the police. I've been in many situations around the city where the police are in charge and conflicting information. One officer will tell you one thing, another officer will tell you another.
Right, and by the way, to that point, I'm up against the clock here, David, but I will say this. If somehow there's a scenario where one cop is telling him to go and at the same time a cop is telling him to stop, and there was that kind of, I guess, as I'm understanding it, if his version is he was directed by the first officer to go around and then the other officer told him to stop. Well, again, all bets are off if a cop tells you to stop the car.